Welcome to the very frosty morning. Jason and I got our heavy coats on here. I do have an iron shirt on underneath, just to make it worthwhile doing earlier. So Jason, while we're letting people in, and I think there's 5 minutes before Sarah will flick the switch so that we can start the official recording, I thought maybe we could just talk around what you're seeing in the economy at the moment. A lot of stuff around about cash booster, JobKeeper. What are your clients telling you? How are people doing at the moment?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting environment at the moment where we're certainly seeing a two-speed economy. So there's certain industries and certain business models who are actually seeing record sales in this environment, which is really fascinating to observe. So as you know, probably companies who are already e-commerce businesses, particularly who are already set up and established online, I think what we've seen is a trend from people, who can't leave their homes because of lockdowns or restrictions are still shopping. They still want to spend money. And so what they're doing is rather than going to the Westfields or, to spend the money, they're just going online and buying the products directly from the brand. And so what we're seeing is a big spike or transition into e-commerce, which is interesting to observe because we do have a lot of clients in that e-commerce space. And even then, looking at that further, it's interesting to observe what products or what types of brands are actually doing really well in this environment as well. So one of our clients is Who Gives a Crap. So if you come across those guys that sell toilet paper in bulk,
Yep.
And so obviously toilet paper was a really hot commodity back in March. And so they actually sold everything. They sold out of all their stock across Australia, UK and USA in like a matter of a week because of the panic buying that we saw. So companies like that are seeing their record sales. We're seeing some other businesses who sell what we call discretionary expenses, I guess, like, fashion or, clothes and things like that. And we certainly saw a dip in those sales in the month of March and April. But now it's actually recovering, which is really interesting. Like, so a lot of the merchants that we're seeing are actually recovering in May and June. So yeah, it's, I think what we've seen is like definitely the economy globally definitely saw an impact in the March and April months, but we're actually seeing a quick turnaround in certain categories. Obviously, hospitality, cafes, restaurants, nightclubs, like they're still really hurting at the moment. And I think that's where there's a bit more grim outlook in the economy. I think that, who knows when restrictions will ease, and they are slowing to ease up, but the amount of foot traffic that they're talking about is only maximum 50 patrons in a bar. For a lot of companies just can't cover their fixed costs with only 50 covers. You need to really get that high turnover. And so the only levers available for the business owners is either, hey, we charge more for our food or drinks, which, obviously spikes that up, which, might put people off because I'm not going to spend $10 on a beer. Like I'm used to paying $5 or $7. Or the other alternative that you just churn through people quickly. So you set time limits on how long people can sit in the bar for. That might be half an hour or an hour. But even then, it encourages people to drink really quickly, where it might change the environment for people who just want to sit down and have a nice wine or something. So it's quite interesting to observe. Yeah.
Yeah, so from the investment side, I think we've seen a lot of investors shoring up their investments and not making any new investments. But just now I'm seeing a whole load of investors coming out of the woodwork, looking for tech startups and some very old-fashioned, if you like, industries like transportation, logistics, mining, that sort of thing. So the money's out there to be put to use at the right time. But it's interesting around who's doing what, where and when, because we've got a number of e-commerce startups and whose problems before COVID-19 were how to sell stuff. And now it's how to deliver stuff.
Yeah.
And if they're buying stuff from abroad, it's how to get the stuff.
Yes.
So a problem is still there. It's just moved.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to see how they can scale really, really rapidly if they had all of that supply chain sorted out.
Yeah, and that was the thing that not many people are talking about is, there is demand there, but a lot of these companies were constrained by the supply, as you mentioned, because of, factories in China closing down because of COVID, and, that's where most products are made nowadays. So, and then there has been a push a lot of governments to nationalize manufacturing and really reboot manufacturing in their own country. So America, we're seeing that. There's a lot of talk in the Morrison government about doing that in Australia, which is, I think, is a good thing long term. It's whether we can maintain that competitiveness from a price perspective. That's a different question altogether. But yeah.
Yeah. So even like our guitar shop, and I went to buy a piece of my guitar, and he said, "Well, I can't get anything to sell you." I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
I suppose people are sitting at home, if they're a guitarist, they're playing their guitar and they need to buy stuff. But you kind of think that companies had enough cash flow to at least have stock for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely. I think that the timing of COVID was probably serendipitous in many ways, because typically a lot of importers would pre-buy stock because of Chinese New Year. So, in China, all the factory, everything shuts down for basically at least 2 weeks. And so a lot of people pre-purchase all their stock knowing that the country's essentially shut down anyway, but then COVID hit. And so luckily they had a lot of stock because of the pre-buying, but that started to dwindle obviously as they were selling it. So we're still seeing supply chain shortages, but it's definitely getting better. But yeah, it's I think what we're seeing in the midterm, we're preparing a lot of our clients for just a lot more economic pain to come. This is probably only the beginning. It's only a month 2 or 3. The economic shocks that we're seeing at the moment are from a health crisis, which is the virus and the lockdown. I think this is after the stimulus in terms of JobKeeper and all that sort of stuff will end eventually. That's when we'll see really a recession economic shock. And that's when it's not everyone's talking about a V-shaped recovery. I think it's not going to be that. I think we're certainly going to see the impact of record high unemployment really impacting spending and consumption. So we're saying to everyone there's probably 18 months to 2 years of pain, to be honest, and that's the reality of how we're preparing for it anyway. Hopefully it's not that long, but a bit more pain to come, we think.
Yeah, and have you got one sentence about not COVID, about Cash Booster and JobKeeper? Does it work? Does it actually provide business any cash flow?
The cash flow boost is, it depends how you see it. The cash flow boost has been good. I mean, it's free money. Everyone will take free money. I think for a lot of companies that had debts with the ATO already, what we're seeing is that money was just simply offsetting the already debts that they already had in terms of bad lodgements and whatnot. They actually changed a provision recently to actually refund you the money, even though you had a tax debt. So that was new. And so we have actually seen cash being paid to bank accounts. The reality is though, it's nice to have a 20K, coming from free money, but that only covers rent for a month for a lot of companies who are, in the traditional bricks and mortar. So that wasn't really helpful because it's just a one-off payment. But JobKeeper certainly has done a good job, not necessarily just to help minimize the wage costs, but I think in terms of confidence, we definitely saw with our clients, we didn't do too many applications in the end. We probably did about 10 of our client base, which was a good thing for us. But we definitely saw when JobKeeper kicked in, there was a lot more kind of relief in the economy. Everyone was like, okay, cool. I've got some money now. Everyone's feeling a bit more comfortable with the environment. I think if JobKeeper didn't exist, we'd be seeing a very, very probably a lot more grim outlook, certainly. But now everyone's talking about, well, when will JobKeeper end? Is it September? Could be earlier. Who really knows? But
yeah. Okay.